Hi Amit, I am Akash Kumar, and today I am going to take interview for the position of front-end web developer. So, hi Amit, how are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Very good.
So, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Yeah, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Amit Kumar Murmu and I belongs from Jharkhand. Basically, I'm from West Bengal, but from last 2 years, I've been residing in Jharkhand. I did my schooling, my high schooling from here itself, and then I went for my graduation, but couldn't completed it because of some financial issues. And then I directly jump onto my career options, found this web development course very interesting, and then I explored this, and along that way I discovered Masai school, and now I'm studying web development, full stack web development course in Masai school for last 7 to 8 months. I did some individual projects along the way and some collaborative projects as well. It's very tight, and I'm currently learning backend development.
Yeah, nice Amit. So, will you tell me what is the difference between front-end and back-end?
Yeah, of course. So what is front end? At first, front end is a user interface that we see. I mean, web development field consists of two parts: front end and back end. Front end part is mostly interactable, like that is the client side part where user can interact with the website. It can do all the things that they wanted to do, like for example, they can order. So that's all about front end. But on the other hand, when we talk about back end is there when all the logics is happening. Like whenever user orders something, then the back end is the thing that handles those requests, that manages the state or the all the data about the user and all the business logic. All the things happens on the backend. So these two are very different, but these two continuously and collaboratively makes the full stack web development.
So, what is the box model in CSS and how does it work?
Okay, so box model is a concept in CSS that we use. Box model consists of four aspects. It has a main content or the content area. It has borders. It has padding, and the last margin. So continue. These four contributes to the box model. In box model, we study these things just to make a good responsive and interactive layouts, because layouts are difficult to make. So one should know all these things, and one should know how to apply these things to make interactive and graceful and beautiful layouts. So yeah, these four things conclusively are called box models.
So, can you tell me what is the difference between margin and padding? These two
Okay,
things
yes.
included in box model. Yeah.
Yes. So these two things are basically from the box model itself. Margin is the area outer side of the box model. Let's say we have a container. So the container, the area which is outside of that container, which is there between the container and the outer elements, other elements, those are margins. So margins, basically we give margins just to separate or just give some spacing around that box. But when we talk about padding, so padding is the area between the main content of that box and the border itself. So border, the area between border and the main content is called the padding. So we can say that when you want to separate or isolate your main div from outer elements, you give margin. But when you want the space around the boundary or the border and your content area, then we give padding.
Okay. So, how do you center an element horizontally and vertically in CSS? Hello?
Your element. Yeah, now I'm audible.
Yeah, you are
Yeah.
audible.
So yeah. So there are multiple approaches and multiple ways to center your element horizontally and vertically. Just like you can use flexbox property, you can use positioning in CSS, and you can also use transform property as well. But most of the times I used flexbox property because those are very easy. In flexbox property, what we do is we just give three properties like display flex and justify content. Justify content will align your box horizontally, and then align item center. That property will align your element vertically. So these three properties are mainly used to align your content in the center.
Okay. So what is the purpose of meta tag in HTML?
Okay, so meta tag in HTMLs holds or stores some information or some data that is not required to the user on the website, but it is very necessary for the browser itself or the engine, we can say. So these tags involves all the properties like the device width or the encoding or any other properties that a web browser or a JavaScript engine requires. But this is not very concerning for the user itself. These are just for the browsers and JavaScript engine.
Okay. So how do you optimize a website's performance with the help of CSS?
Okay, so by using CSS, we can improve the performance as well, because CSS provides you some out of the box tools like by using some preprocessors, CSS preprocessors like SAS, less, or the stylus as well. These tools will provide you some out of the box tools. Like by using these tools, you can implement programming ideologies into your code, so that you don't need to write the CSS for each and every container. You will use the functions that is from the programming language. You can use the modular type code. You can use components as well and other tools. By using these tools, you will need to write less code, and those codes are very much efficient, and performance wise they are more valuable. So by using these tools, CSS also can make your website faster and performant.
Okay. So what are the advantage of using CSS, Flexbox and Gridbox? Or we can say that, or
Okay.
vice versa, means why we use the grid and Flexbox basically in CSS.
Okay, so CSS Flexbox and CSS grids are two different properties in CSS.
Yes.
Yeah. So when we talk about CSS Flexbox, so Flexbox property will allow a developer to align the content of the website on one axis, because it is unidirectional. You can apply all those properties when you want to align your property or your content in one direction. But when we talk about grid, then it allows a developer to arrange or align all the items in multiple directions or multiple axes, we can say, like horizontally, vertically, or diagonally, anywhere. So these two were differences. These two were different. CSS Flexbox is pretty much very basic. It is used to create the nav bar, or if you have any sliders to put on a same line, then you can use Flexbox. But when it comes to grid, then by using grid, you can create like galleries, photo galleries, or multiple complex designs where you want to have multiple components or multiple elements with different sizes, but on a same plane and on the every direction, like horizontally and vertically. So yeah, these were the benefits and differences between Flexbox and grid.
So you have also learned about the JavaScript. So will you tell me what is the difference between ES6 and the previous version, means ES5?
Okay, so I have learned about ES5, ES6, and ES7, which is the newer version. So these three versions are very different from each other. Every time when JavaScript introduced some new features, it introduced in a bundle. So ES5 was a version when they introduced some new features, but in later stage when we have ES6, then ES6 was a time when a lot of new new features were introduced to the JavaScript, just like arrow functions. We had classes in there, and we have other template leaders were also there. So these new features were introduced to ES6, but when we come to ES7, which is the newer version, they didn't introduce much bigger versions or bigger updates. A little fewer improvements or performance updates were there. So these were three updates, and the three versions were introduced where developers introduced new features.
So, can you tell me what is the difference between let, const, and var in JavaScript?
Yeah, as I told, let, const, and var are the keywords in JavaScript with which you can declare any variable or any data type. So let's talk about var. So when var was the very initial keyword that JavaScript introduced to declare variables. Var is basically function scope, because when we declare a variable using var inside a function, that variable is accessible into that function only, because we cannot access that variable outside of that function, because var is function scope. Talking about talking about let. So let was a new data type, or new keyword that introduced after var. Let basically solved one problem. Whenever we declare a variable using var, then we can also redeclare that same variable using var, and that was an issue. So to overcome that issue, we developers describe or introduced let. They didn't swipe out var, they introduced let. So let solve that issue. So using let, we can declare a variable but cannot redeclare that variable. But we can reassign the variable, and then we came to const. So redeclaring was also an issue, because sometimes we don't want to reassign some values again and again. So in that case, we use const. In const, we cannot redeclare, and we cannot reassign the values to that same variable. So let, const, and var are very different. You doing the same thing, declaring, but in a very different ways.
Okay. So, can you tell me about the hosting? What is hosting, and can we host these all three variables that you have discussed about let, var, and const?
Okay, so hoisting, according to my knowledge, is hoisting means that whenever we declare any variable or anything in JavaScript, then when that JavaScript file is compiled, when compiler sees that JavaScript, then it first checks all the declaration. Like it just move all the declaration part of all the variables, and it hoist those things. Like it took those variables, and it moves to the top of the document, so that it has all the record of all the variables. So all the declarations are hoisted, like let, const, and var. But there is some differences in there. We can access the declared variables, like let a, we can access a, but we cannot access the value till the point we move to that declaration. So we can access at the very top of the line the variable a, which is declared by var, but we cannot access the value unless and until we get to that line. Talking about the let, when we hoist those things, so let is also hoisted, but by some reason we cannot access the variable. Like if I declare let a is equals to something, then it is hoisted, but we cannot access the a itself. Like whenever we try to access a, which was declared by let, then that will give us a reference as if we haven't declared it, but it is hoisted. Same to const as well. Const and let are also hoisted, but we cannot access those things unless it reaches to that line where it has actually declared. Yeah, so these three are hoisted, but we cannot access according to what those keywords are.
You have heard the keyword temporary dead zone.
Temporary, yes, I have heard. So temporary dead zone, I might be wrong, so let me guess. Temporary dead zone are the areas to which no, honestly, I have not. I have heard
So
it, but I'm not
basically,
sure if I'm correct or wrong.
yeah, basically let and const is hosted in the temporary dead zone. Okay. B3 can hosted, but late and const is always hosted in the temporary directory. That's the difference basically. That's theory one. Okay. So my next
Yeah.
question would be, what is the event loop in JavaScript and how does it work?
Okay, so event loop in JavaScript is the mechanism that basically manages the order of event execution or the callback execution. So we can see it as a program where whenever an asynchronous operation is executed, like a fetch request or any callback request, then it goes to event loop first of all, and then event loop decides whether we should execute it or just keep it side on callback queues and web API. So those things are mainly operated by event loop only. So whenever event loop sees that the call stack is empty, then it's the work of event loop only that it first calls the callback functions from callback queues and put it into the call stack so that they can execute it. Or we can also say that event loops takes the callback queues from other stacks as well, so that and put it onto the call stack so that they can be executed. So overall, we can say that event loop is a mechanism in JavaScript that manages the execution, like which thing executes when. So yeah, it basically handles the execution.
So have you learned any kinds of framework or library?
Yes, on to the front end side, I have learned React library, which is a library, front end library based on JavaScript, that only.
So can you tell me what is the React.js and what is its main features?
Yeah, so React.js is a front-end library, or we can say component library made upon JavaScript, which is used to make user-friendly interfaces and interactive web applications. So React is a very popular library which allows a developer to which allows a developer to make user-friendly website. It has a lot of benefits over all the other libraries, like it has virtual DOM concept. It can manages state very efficiently, and considering performance as well, we a lot of developers prefers React because it also it has a component based infrastructure, or we can say architecture, where we can only make components and reuse those components whenever and wherever we want.
So can you tell me what is virtual DOM and how it is different from DOM?
Yeah, so virtual DOM is a kind of representation of the actual DOM, but we cannot create it. It just resides in the program's memory. So it is very efficient. It is just virtual. Whenever we create or whenever we want any changes onto the DOM, so we first create it, or we can say React itself just create those changes into the virtual DOM, and then it checks whether those changes are reflected onto the main DOM or not. It just checks the differences, and then when it checks that there are some changes that needs to be reflected onto the real DOM, then it just make those changes. So virtual DOM is very useful when it comes to performance, because using virtual DOM, we are not actually interfering to the main real DOM, because it is too performance costly. We just manipulate the virtual DOM, and then by comparing the original DOM and virtual DOM, we just make fewer changes, and we make fewer changes to the original DOM, because changes are performance costly. So in this way, virtual DOMs helps us in improving performance and efficiency of the code.
So you have heard about the components. So what are the components in React?
Okay, so components in React are basically functions only. In those functions, we create multiple things, and by creating those things once, we can use it anywhere or everywhere in our code base whenever we want. We just need to declare it once, and then we can use it. And after after all, React is only on based on the components only, because that's why it is called component based architecture. In React we create multiple components, and React also gives us there are some other libraries that also bound with React or linked with React that provide some inbuilt or pre-built components as well. By using those, we can actually create multiple things without even coding a single line. And by this thing, we are actually saving a lot of time, and only we are only focusing on what we want to build. And by using React component and React component, we actually do a lot of coding without even writing a single code. And it also manages the state very efficiently, because in React, as I told, that virtual DOM is there. So we use that virtual DOM, and some state management properties are there in React by using and those all the things are executed or implemented into the React component. And that's how React components are very performant and efficient.
Okay. So can you tell me how the state is different from props in React?
Yeah. So sorry, could you
Yeah,
repeat
yeah,
the
yeah.
question?
Just I want to ask you that how the state is different from props, because we have props also in React.js and we have also a state. So can you differentiate both of them?
Okay, yes. So props are the properties that we passed while declaring or while creating a component. So we create one component, and that component will require some prop, or we can say properties, or we can say parameters in simple language. So whenever we want to use that component, we pass some props. So let's say we have a user component that creates a user card. So user takes names and age and address. So we can pass those values while declaring or while using that component, so that it takes those values and it utilize those values inside the component itself. On the other hand, state is very different. State, we can say, is a state of variables or state of any value inside the component. Whenever we use components, inside that we have different variables, and that variables has different values. So by using the state, we can actually manage the state of that value, like on a particular time which variable will have which value. So these things makes React outstanding of other React libraries or other libraries, because it has state management, and React itself take care of state management. We don't have to make we don't need to put any logic is already there. That's why React is very fast in state management, and it can actually manages all these things for us.
Explain the component lifecycle methods in React. Basically, what is the
Okay.
lifecycle
So
method?
component
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah. So component life cycle is divided into three parts only. The creation part, where we actually create the component, and it is first mounted onto the website. So whenever website loads or web page loads, the some of the components are mounted onto the website, or we can say generated, or we can say it took birth. Second phase is the execution phase, or the working phase, where components are doing their work, whichever they are supposed to do. And the third phase is the unmounting phase, where whenever we don't want a component or a UI element onto the website, we just unmount it from the web page, and that phase is called unmounting phase. Basically, every element or every component has these three stages. It is on first stage is just mount onto the website. It first appears onto the website. Second phase is the working phase or execution phase, where it does its work. And the third phase is it just unmount from the web page, so that others elements can mount, or other elements can start their cycle.
And what are the keys in React?
Yeah. So every element in React has to have one key property in them, because keys are very important for React to know which component are we using. So let's say in any React component, we are rendering multiple React component, other React component inside one React component. So it is just for React to know that we are rendering multiple elements. React needs to know, React needs to identify those elements. So React suggests that we use a key property into those elements. So keys are very unique. The values of the keys are very unique, or we need to provide the value of those key are very unique, so that React can know, or React can differentiate each and every element, so that it can do the state management thing that we have talked about. So yeah, it is a property in every component which holds a unique value.
So what is basically Redux and how does it work in React?
Okay. Unfortunately, Redux hasn't started in my course, so I won't be able to answer that.
Okay, no mention. So can you tell me what is Babel? What is Babel and what is Webpack?
Yeah, so I can tell you about the Babel. Babel is a tool that React provides, through which we can actually, I mean, it is very useful for a developer to write code which is similar to HTML. So whenever we use React, we need to write in React. Like, React has its own syntax, but it is very unreadable for a developer. It is very lengthy. So just to solve that problem only, we introduced, or developer introduced, Babel. Babel is, we can say, it is a language translator. We just need to provide some HTML like code. Babel takes it and it converts that HTML like code into React code, or we can say React syntax. So it works as a intermediate between JavaScript and React. So Babel is a tool that converts a simple HTML look like code to JavaScript, or we can say a React code, so that React can understand that thing.
Have you learned about the style components in React?
Style component? No, I haven't.
Okay, no mention. So can you explain me the concept of server side and client side? What is basically server side and client side?
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to answer that because I'm little much. I mean, I have very less knowledge about that.
Okay, basically client side is basically the user side and server side is basically the servers. You can just think like that. So yeah, that's for all today. I have it means you have given the right answers of some questions, and for some questions you have lag there also. Suppose we have asked some questions that you are not able to explain, but overall, yeah, it's good and it's really well and good. And if we talk about your communication skills, then really it's well and good. And yeah, somewhere you lag, but it's okay. In interview, it happens. No mention. So yeah, you can go ahead, and yeah, that's all from my side. Have you any kind of questions for me?
Yeah, yeah. First of all, I would like to thank you for giving me this opportunity to have have a interview like that. I have learned a lot. Like, the questions that you have asked, it also generates a sense of learning mode in me, because a few questions were very new to me, and by learning those questions, I also realized that there are a lot of things that I need to learn. So yeah, it also sparked me learning mode in me. Yeah, thank you for that also.
Okay, Amit. Okay, that's all. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Yeah.